can see you. I can see us.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How you doing?
All right. Another beautiful day.
Absolutely. Okay, let me look around here. Who we got? I see John. I see Marie. Do I see Marie?
Marie's here. Yeah.
Yes, hi.
Yeah. I thought I saw her name somewhere. There it is. And Robert, so we have a quorum. Are you missing someone? Steve, you there?
I'm here, Wayne.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order, 6:01 PM.
Wayne, just for your information, I have to leave at 6:50. So I will just simply log off and. not
You let
work.
us know when that is, because the Bruins come on at 7.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks.
You have perfect timing. That's cool. All right, so let's call the meeting to order, obviously. Let's go with the minutes. I understand we had some minor alterations to the minutes.
Yeah, Wayne, I make a motion that we accept the minutes with amendments submitted by Marie Hladikova.
Okay, did everyone get a chance to look at those?
Yeah, I second the motion.
Okay. All right, let's go through the count then. Rob,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Marie,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
is that you? And aye. So minutes have been accepted as amended. All right, so let's go new business. We don't have any old business, right? I mean, we don't have anything really left over from another meeting that we should be talking about right now.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so let me make this recommendation. So I was thinking about this like before we started the meeting, like, okay, where are we at? Well, we've gone through the Rob, tell me again what it was that we went through, that The
Oh,
thing that
the
on the
working
sheet.
document, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry. So we went through that. We pretty much we did a good job of going through that last week. Well, 2 weeks ago, excuse me. So I guess what I think we need to do at this point is either, I think, and any one of us can do this, either if anyone has anything that they think should be included in this list of rules and regulations that we seem to be developing, or something that you think should not be included in this list of rules and regulations. I think maybe that's where we need to kind of go next. What might we be missing, and what have we got in here that we don't think we actually need? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well,
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Marie sent some research that she had done, half a
I
dozen
saw that. Yes, thank you, Marie.
documents. And I think there were half a dozen excellent examples of some things that are being done elsewhere. And I'm very strongly in favor of including a self-evaluation checklist with the application.
All right, but is that something that we want to make as a requirement? You know what I mean? Like, right, we really want to, what I would like, okay, let me kind of start over again. What I think we need to end up with is a fairly concise list of regulations for the use of property in Nahant as a short-term rental. What I don't want to do, if we can help it, is to make it into such a detailed checklist that it just gets so too cumbersome. Am I making myself clear? In other words, I saw the checklist that Marie sent us. I mean, I guess it's a good idea, but that's something, to me, that's something that could be handed out later, I guess, not necessarily written into an actual paperwork for regulation, if you see where I'm coming from.
I see there being a difference between a recommendation and a required part of the application. And to make sure that people are going through.
No, we missed last week.
What's that?
No, go ahead, John, keep going.
To have included in the regulations the requirement that a self-evaluation be conducted and signed and submitted with the application means it's not just recommended, and that people will be pushed into the position of taking a harder look at just what it is that you and I, Wayne, would be looking at
Okay.
when we do a pre-permit inspection. So I think it would, yeah, I'm looking for it to be part of the requirement.
All right. Anyone else have a feeling on this or an opinion?
I have seen something similar to that. I can't remember which municipality it was in, but it was basically a similar type of review that the individual, the homeowner, could do, and gave them the opportunity to get some grasp over what they're getting into as far as the various features that might be required under the various building codes and whatever other regulations we might put on them through the licensing process. I don't see that as a bad thing. I know I have several recommendations that I would like to make that would, I don't know even who they'd go to, whether it would go to the planning board or whether the selectmen or whatever, but they don't necessarily have to be written in as far as the rules. But in this case, yeah, I don't, you know, if we're, I don't know how deeply we're going to go into the language found in the application, but we can certainly add this piece in to whatever we do there.
Okay. Well, I guess that kind of brings us in a circle around to what exactly is this committee really tasked with doing, right? I mean, we haven't not been directly told to come up with a finite list of regulations. That's really not what our task is supposed to be, right? My understanding is our task is supposed to make recommendations to someone, the town meeting at some point in time as to what should be done about short-term rentals. I mean, obviously, I think as a committee, we've agreed that we need to have some regulation. We could just as easily as a committee come back and say, we think they should be banned, right? I mean, that's theoretical.
Correct.
Could have been or could be a decision that the committee made, but we've already gone past that point, right?
I agree.
So do we really want to? I suppose what we have to end up with as a committee is to formulate a list of regulations that would become. Now, I don't know if this would. I don't think it would become actually a bylaw. I think it will become just that. It will become a regulation, and I'm not sure legally where that kind of flows in. But there's also the area of actual bylaw changes that I think are going to have to be made at some point.
Wayne, as it was explained to me by the town manager, they are asking for us to design a program to be able to get up in front of town meeting and describe to the town what a short-term rental program would look like as far as how it would be controlled, what it represents as far as resources, whose responsibility it would be to enforce the rules, what would those rules look like? And in response to that, that's where I've been holding out models of what other communities have done. In this case, the document that we've been working off of has been the city of Cambridge, what they did. That to me is something that, you know, in whatever the Nahant version, finished version of the Nahant piece looks like, it would follow that same model as far as defining what a short-term rental is and the different types of short-term rentals. And again, the regulations governing each, whether it's fees or fines, or what do the rules look like? Well, you know, this is again a description of how the town would apply this if this type of occupancy is approved. Again, it was described to me as an effort to say that, you know, everybody wants to feel safe that this isn't going to turn into some sort of a monster. Well, how are we going to prevent that from happening?
Right.
Again, with the hope that it wouldn't just summarily be voted down simply because it's short-term rentals. Maybe some people might look at it and say, well, if it can be controlled, then maybe it would be all right. Well, how are we going to do that?
Right. So, I mean, ultimately, somewhere along the line, something that we put together is going to end up in front of town meeting. I'm not even sure that it has to go in front of town meeting.
We have reviewed the what was voted and passed at town meeting, directing the town administrator to pull this committee together. We have reviewed that at these meetings, and I agree with what you said, Wayne. Make a recommendation. And that's pretty much the boiled down version. I don't disagree with anything that Rob said. And we've been slogging away at it. These things are just very cumbersome to pull together in an equitable manner. But I think that we've been doing a creditable job addressing the task and using the cumbersome process of assessing what is best for our town. I don't know any shortcuts or any quick way or any painless way. It's just slogging forward.
So in front of us right now, we have the
The actual article, right?
the actual article as voted and approved. And our directive was to develop draft bylaws regulating short-term rentals pursuant to Massachusetts General Law 64G14 and present those draft bylaws at a future town meeting.
Okay, so they really do want us to draft. Again, I see it says bylaws there. I'm not sure that's where we need to be, but
I agree.
Well, we have no authority to approve these on behalf of the town. That's in the planning board.
oh, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. I understand that. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, well, like, I guess in order to allow short-term rentals to actually exist, I know they exist now. So, without any regulation, but in order to make them officially allowable, my building inspector hat is telling me that we need to change the bylaw that describes accessory uses and have short-term rentals become an allowable, acceptable use in existing dwellings. Would anyone disagree with that?
I agree.
Right, so that's a law change or an amendment to a bylaw or an addition.
Wayne, if
to-
I could just comment on that. I just distributed something out, some research I did. I haven't seen a single town have a listed use for a short-term rental. A short-term rental, from what I've seen, is a residential use. It's the same if you live in a single family, if you own a 12 family, if you rent them, it's a residential use. It's not classified as something else. Like if you bought a 2-family,
Yes.
it's still zoned, I believe, as residential. And I don't see why these would have to be rezoned as anything. I think, it's the prerogative of the homeowner. If they want to take a 2-family and make a store out of it, well, that's a different story. But if they want to take a 2-family and rent one unit out month to month, year-end lease, or short-term, they're all residential uses. So there's no special use to rent something on a month-to-month basis. There's no special use to rent something on an annual basis. So I'm having a difficult time seeing what would the use be. It would be a residential, rental use. I feel like the only way we'd need a use is if we were taking a commercial building, like a commercial storefront, and saying, okay, you can rent that out, short term, so you can have a business going in there week after week changing its hat, and therefore you're going to be afforded the luxury of being able to do so. But right now, anybody could rent their property in Nahant. How I look at what we're tasked with, it's figuring out what we're going to allow people to rent. We can put restrictions. Again, it's almost comical, but people can't rent out sheds, tree houses, tents. Are they going to be allowed to rent rooms in their house? So on and so forth. But that, I think, is what we're tasked with. I would think that trying to rezone them, well, what if somebody has a 1-family house that they live in and they rent out 1 bedroom out of it? would that now not be a residential property? It would be an accessory use of some other sort. You know, the documentation I just emailed everybody, and I did do it a couple weeks ago, so I apologize. I haven't got it out now. You'll see, I referenced Swampscott, Lynn, Marblehead, pretty much everyone around us that allow Airbnb, and they have nothing in anywhere of their zoning bylaws, table of uses, anything that resembles short-term rental.
But if you go to Stockbridge, Nantucket, Williamstown, I don't know, Salem, Rockport, Boston, Cambridge, Newton, all of them do. In 2013, the planning board told me that short-term rentals were allowed under our boarders and lodgers provision. The Massachusetts Supreme Court in 2018 said in Stiller versus Linfield that boarders and lodgers are not short-term rentals, and the court attempted to define short-term rentals. In 2019, the state of Massachusetts passed a law which defined short-term rentals and put them under the same taxation guide. I can't quote a chapter and verse as hotels and motels. So if we're looking, and you're right, Steve, we don't have immediate neighbors that have anything in them. And the interesting thing there is that such as in Marblehead, they're growing exponentially. They've got over 140 of them listed right now. But the bottom line is that this is not anything other than a failure to keep up with the times. Again, the law that actually established the definition of short-term rentals came into effect in July of 2019. And I suspect that, and we're actually seeing it, that we're going to have more and more cities and towns that are realizing that this is something that they need to get involved with. What's interesting is if we look at even the records for communities that are taxing applying the 6%, have adopted the 6% tax that Nahant adopted last year. There's a long list of communities that haven't even done that. So it's a growing thing, but I don't think that we can set our neighbors as precedent in this issue.
I hear you, Rob, but I still, that doesn't address what is the use going to be. The state created a database conveniently for them to generate tax revenue. The town jumped on board and said, yeah, we'll take a slice of that pie too. I don't think that has any bearing on the use of the building though. You know, Wayne, you forgot more than all of us will ever know. So I think your opinion weighs heavily on this, but if someone said, I want to rent my house out short term 15 years ago, people would have said, okay, you know, what do you mean you're going to rent out an apartment? Okay, well, it's an apartment. That's what you do with them. The fact that you're renting it on a computer still doesn't change the fact that it's a residential rental apartment. And, you know, how I see it, it's a way to track it. I think there's a lot of state and legislative involvement because it's a way to generate money. And, you know, they would tax us, I think, on just about anything if they could track it well enough and it passed through. But I wouldn't say that has a bearing on the actual use. I struggle, and I would invite anybody, and you could, you know, we should go around, we should look at some of these Airbnbs, we should see what they're all about. They're probably just regular apartments that are furnished. You know, I think one task that we should take on, that was my belief of what the board was going to do, and we dove into it quite early, and you know, we've obviously had to navigate where we're going to head with this and how we're going to get there. But I think a great starting point is going to be, what are we going to allow to be rented? I know we're working on that, but can you rent a portion of your house? And could you rent a basement? What if you have a basement that's not legal living space, but someone made an apartment out of it? Now people have to open the doors to this board and file for a license for this board, before this board. That's probably going to deter a lot of people from doing something or putting someone somewhere that they shouldn't be. But as far as the grave concern, I mean, I can hear it, but to me, it's still a rental. You could get a month-to-month lease, or you could get a 12-month lease, and it's the same thing. There's not different people on Airbnb than there are looking for apartments. Most of the people on Airbnb probably live in an apartment or own a house themselves, I would assume. So it's generally the same people. But of course, I think the status quo idea of Airbnb is it's just a free-for-all party. And I think that's where the board comes in. Airbnb, I think the town has had it for about 10 years now. The first registered Airbnb guest started staying here. But there's definitely probably been some nuisances, and there's been nuisances with stores and beaches and Ubers and Grubhub and whatever else, whatever other technological advances we've had. But in 10 years, we haven't been overrun by them. In 10 years, there's not this dying. I think 17 Airbnbs listed in the town. There's 1,400 residents, 1,400 houses or apartments in total. So it's, in 10 years time, it's gained just over 1% of the town's available space. And I think this board, in any rules and regulations, any licensing, is just going to deter people from doing it. And I think the more we try to box it into a corner, well, if we leave anybody there, then they're the only game in town. My concern would be if we say you can only do an Airbnb if it's owner occupied. Well, the demand for Airbnb is still going to be the same. So the people that are sharing their house, living in it under the same roof while a lodger or an Airbnb guest stays there, well, they're just going to get more people, and they're going to be, more appetized to maybe say, well, geez, I got a lot of people, and a lot of people are willing to pay a lot of money. I think the competition is going to kill that out, though. I think if there's more than one, they balance themselves out. As I just shared with everybody, there's a list of rules and regulations on Airbnb. There's a place to complain on Airbnb, which I'd be willing to bet probably nobody has ever done, but I'd be interested to see what they do, because they don't seem like they take very well to aggravated neighbors either. There's actually a complete section on their website that you go on and you file a complaint or a concern with a current Airbnb host. So again, not to digress too much, I think the process is they've probably worked out kinks. And I think when it first started, there was maybe there was a free-for-all, but that could be said with just about anything you do. That could be said with anything happening these days.
Okay, so I think Steve, you're just maybe got a little ahead of me on the whole bylaw thing, because I'm not, believe me, I'm not looking to change bylaws, and I certainly don't want to have short-term rental as a separate section of our bylaws. But right now, I guess it's because it is so totally unregulated that where do you put the regulation? Do we just start off with just a list of regulations? Some cities and towns seem to have done that. They've just, and again, I don't know, because we're a town as opposed to a city, that can, obviously, if you were a city council could just draft a list of regulations and say, here it is. That it wouldn't go to anyone else. It would just become it would be a city council type of thing, right? But I think we have to make sure that what we're going to suggest to the town is something that actually is legally correct. And
Wayne, would it make sense to invite the town's attorney for one of these meetings and ask all these questions? I think you guys are kind of asking the right questions, but I feel like we need to talk to the town's lawyer to see you know, which way to go. And I thought that the purpose of this committee was to review some of the best practices that other towns do, address some of the safety concerns, right? That I would say a lot of people have about Airbnbs or short-term rentals. And I would just kind of focus on drafting these rules and then invite the town's attorney and figure out, where does this fit?
Okay,
Do we need to update the bylaws, or do we just issue new regulations and implement whatever checklists we decide to implement or not? And take it from there.
I can't disagree with you. I mean, that would certainly kind of take some of the workload off of us. But I guess what I don't want to have happen is I don't want to go back to whatever body that this ends up in front of and have them say, well, we can't implement that until we do this. And then find out that whatever that this is takes 2 years to get done.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Coming from-
I think that's when the lawyers need to weigh in, right? So
Okay.
I would invite the town's attorney
You're
and
probably right.
figure out what to do.
Okay. So,
I think for almost, for lack of better word, say for free, you know, without much approval, we could draft rules and regulations that didn't stipulate certain areas or certain houses. I think if we classify a short-term rental, of course, that's going to require zoning bylaw change. And then if we say certain areas are restricted from this or certain houses, I think if we made a blanket set of rules that just went with them, I think that would just go before the selectmen. I think if we initiate something that's going to go to print in the zoning bylaws, then that's a separate animal.
oh, definitely it's a separate animal. You're absolutely correct. I just want to make sure, well, again, and we won't know this for sure, but what we don't want to do is formulate this whole thing that we're trying to do, and then have someone tell, well, yeah, you know, that has to go before town meeting, and it's too late for such and such, and you have to have this public hearing and that public hearing, and, you know, and have this get kicked. I don't want to kick this can. I don't want to give anyone a reason to kick it down the road, I guess is what I'm trying to. So anyway, all right, so let's do this then, because we already talked about cutting this meeting short. Let me, I'm gonna open this up to our non-committee participants in here, and let's see if we have any other input. And anyone else would like to speak or ask a question?
Wayne?
Okay, I don't know who I'm looking at. I see Dan Scribb, just the man we wanted to talk to.
Yeah, I got a text from the harbor master.
Okay, all right, so let me just jump right in. So we're having this conversation about, does a short-term rental, the concept of the short-term rental have to become an accessory use within our zoning bylaw, or is that something we can pretty much just ignore? In other words, do we have to, I was thinking it should be listed as an acceptable accessory use in any zoning district, but then say, you know, but it has to pursuant to type of a thing. Is that
Wayne,
reasonable?
Wayne, you're
Yeah.
asking this question because bylaws was referenced in the charge voted on and passed at town meeting. I just want to make that clear for Dan.
Okay.
Right, yeah. Well, that was part of the description of our existence, is to make suggestions for bylaw changes if necessary. But I
Draft
guess,
bylaws.
is it even necessary to change a bylaw to allow short-term rentals? Would you say that it's completely outside the existing bylaws? Or should we actually create a classification for it?
Well, it's not prohibited by our bylaws. Like lodging houses are, of course, an issue, right? But they're not prohibited, which tells me that they are allowed in the town, but at this point without regulation, which is why you guys are.
Exactly. So in order to incorporate, you know, some a list of regulations. Can we do that without a bylaw change? Can we just say, you know what I mean? Some cities and towns seem to have been doing it by like ordinances,
Yes.
right? And again, we don't do ordinances, and I'm assuming, or maybe we do. Can it be done? Can all this be enacted without a bylaw change, I guess is where I'm at.
Let's back up 1 second. A bylaw and an ordinance are pretty much the same thing, but ordinances apply to towns, bylaws apply to, I'm sorry, the other way around. Ordinances apply to cities and bylaws apply to towns. Okay, so.
All right.
So
So
just
that's
remember
why
that.
I'm seeing different language when I go through the internet and see who's doing what. I'm
Yeah.
seeing that different language for a reason.
Yeah, but they're essentially, they perform the same function, right? They're basically
Okay.
local law, so to speak. So, okay, so without having looked into it without any look into it at all, my understanding was that short-term rentals were already allowed in town specifically because they were not disallowed in town.
Correct.
So there was nothing
Correct.
prohibiting them.
Okay.
Which gives us, and I say that keeping in mind, we have the lodging house issue, so there might be a bylaw change at some point just to clarify the difference between the two, because I know sometimes there is some question, but I don't think there's a bylaw change required to specifically permit a short-term rental, though it wouldn't hurt. Your job is to come up with the regulations that are within the four corners of the statute.
Okay. All right.
Empowers you. Okay.
And what we can also do, Dan, is not to put you on the spot, right? Because you didn't know that we'll be asking these questions. We can have you put some thought into it. If something changes, let us know.
Yes.
And so the main point was that we were talking about whether or not we need to make short-term rentals part of some accessory use to a house if we need to change the bylaws. So, why don't you take some time to think about it, what is allowed, what is not, and let us know. I mean, there is no
Sure.
rush to get us answered tonight.
Sure. No problem.
And Dan, if Steve Viviano here, if I could add to that, just I think we're all going to appreciate your knowledge here. Wayne was saying, and we were conversating back and forth about it. Wayne had mentioned that he felt the need to say a short-term rental, is label a short-term rental as an accessory use and make it an allowable use in order for anybody to operate an Airbnb and not be outside of the town bylaws. But would you perceive a short-term rental as a separate use? Would you perceive that as something that should be labeled and classified? Or my thought was it's still a residential use. It's the same as renting your apartment month to month or year to year.
Yeah.
It's just week to week or day to day, however you're doing it. Or do you think that, no, we would need something in there to clarify that?
All right. Well, let me put some thought into it. My knee-jerk reaction is that no, we wouldn't need it, but it might be helpful, right? That's my first thought, but I would need to think about that a bit more.
Okay.
I can talk to you guys next time.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else have any other questions for Dan? We don't want to take up any more of his time than necessary. All right. Well, thank you, Dan.
All right, guys. I'll be in touch.
Thanks,
All
Dan.
right.
You bet. Bye.
Okay, so for the sake of the tonight's conversation, we're not looking to change any zoning bylaws at this point. We're just looking to develop some type of a list of regulations that would culminate in the registration and some form of inspection for short-term rentals. Can we all agree on that much?
Yeah, Wayne, this is Lorraine Logan. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I do have a question. I heard these meetings were taking place and I rent my home on VRBO. I don't know, approximately 25 nights a year or 30 nights a year, not all that crazy much. But I'm wondering, I have very strict rules for my property. I write on the website, I let them know that that if they decide to rent with me, it's an extremely quiet residential neighborhood. And, you know, I make sure I do all I can to make sure people are going to behave. But short of that, what?
I said that that's wonderful.
All right, but is this, I guess what I'm wondering is, yeah, excuse me, you can borrow it. What I'm wondering is this all taking place because maybe people aren't behaving or the town doesn't want us to have VRBOs or Airbnbs
Well-
or,
All right, so let me answer your question.
thank you.
So the reaction runs the gamut. Obviously, I know there's got to be at least a few people in town that there was never a Airbnb in town, they would be very happy. For any number of different reasons, everyone has their own. We have a couple of neighbors of existing short-term rental units that are not happy at all because of the increase in noise and just general traffic and so forth and so on. So there's certainly some people in town that would probably say, you know, I don't want to see this at all. I just don't want it, right? So you're going to have that. So that's one extreme end of the thing. And the other extreme end is like, hey, you know, like just do whatever you want, right? So that's the other end. So
Right.
what we would like to do as a committee at this point is to develop a certain, at least some registration process and some kind of an inspection process that would, if nothing else, would ensure the safety of the people who are renting these units. Because my 30 plus years experience as a building inspector tells me that people will do any goddamn thing that they think they can get away with. Right? So if somebody thought they could rent a totally unsafe basement with without the proper egress and without the proper alarms, and so if they thought they could rent that for X amount of money a night and get away with it, they're going to do it.
Right,
It
okay.
does happen. I mean, and the fact that we don't really know where these units are being rented throughout town makes it difficult to find out who's doing the right thing and who's not doing the right thing.
I see, okay.
So someone like yourself, obviously, if you're renting out your whole home, then your house was constructed and inspected when it was built. I'm sure you have all your fire alarm, your smoke and CO detectors are all functioning properly.
Exactly, yeah,
Great, but that's not necessarily the case, right?
okay.
And
Yeah.
I mean, again, we just saw in the news the other day that the fire department, and I don't remember, I think it was in Lawrence, responded to a fire and found 2 illegal apartments in a basement of a home that was on fire.
Oh, gosh, yeah, okay, so it's more for,
Well, my personal viewpoint is all of this stuff is for the safety of the people who are renting it.
okay, so someone like you would come out and inspect my property and, say, okay, you can rent this, or no, okay,
That's the concept that's the viewpoint that I'm coming from as the building inspector. That's my viewpoint.
right,
I
okay.
mean, I'm not saying that's the viewpoint of the whole committee, but that's my viewpoint.
Mhm.
We had a fire not too far away from your home. Now, many years ago, single family home catches fire, the fire department's there. They can't get from one piece of the house to the other because it had been chopped up into no less than 4 illegal units.
Oh my
Single
God.
family home.
Yeah,
Someone could have been killed in that fire.
right,
Luckily, no one was hurt, but certainly the possibility was there. I ended up taking that homeowner to court to get that house brought back to its single family status. And it took 3 years to get that done.
right,
So like I said, given the opportunity, it's amazing what people will do if they think they can get away with it and if they don't think someone's looking.
mm-hmm,
And that's kind of my own personal viewpoint of this whole thing, is that I don't really care who rents what to whom.
right,
That's my thing. My thing is make sure it's
it's up to standards and legal, and yeah,
we've got it. We can't just have it like this free for all.
of
I
course,
don't want someone renting out tents in their backyard type of situation.
right. Oh, very good. So,
That's my own thing.
okay, but
I
other,
don't, again,
other-
gonna get something similar from at least, the majority of this board.
mm-hmm. Oh, all right. That's definitely, I would want that done anyway. Okay,
Yeah, and again, and most people with any kind of common sense would say, yeah, I want that too.
right.
But
Okay.
again, give someone an inch and they'll take a mile type of a situation also occurs.
Exactly. Okay.
To me, that's my thing. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's everybody on this committee has that same viewpoint, or anyone else that might be listening to this meeting right now, maybe has a whole different take on what we should and shouldn't be doing relative to short-term rentals, but that's mine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Do we have anyone else that's not on the committee that might want to jump in here? We got a few more minutes left in this meeting.
Yeah, hi, my name's Caroline Reinsch. I live at 11 Hillcrest. So the concern you just expressed around safety and a couple of examples that you shared, does that not also apply to long-term rentals?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But
So-
again, a long-term rentals are already have control. We already, theoretically anyway, again, anyone
Okay,
that does stuff that's illegal is still illegal. But we do have an inspection system that is supposed to occur for long-term rentals. And you have housing regulations that go with that. But you can't control everything. And you're not going to control the person who's just, I'm going to do whatever I want with that kind of an attitude. But
right.
the Airbnb, if theoretically, right, if you have an Airbnb, you're supposed to be registered with the state,
Right.
right? So if you're registered with the state, but you're not registered with the local community, you still could be doing just about all they're worried about is getting their little piece of the pie, right? From what I can gather, because that's the only reason why you're registering with them. So they're not worried about safety or even whether or not, that you should be, whatever the space is that you're renting is even legal, right? So that's their thing. But again, we want to make sure that people are doing the right thing. That's, again, my viewpoint. And I don't think I'll get an argument from anyone else on our own committee.
Thank you.
So just to add to what Wayne was just saying, but if you operate a short-term rental, or if this topic is of an interest to you, I suggest you start attending these meetings so that we get to hear from different viewpoints. Some other ideas that came up that we were discussing over the past couple of weeks was whether or not non-residents should be allowed to operate a short-term rental in Nahant, whether or not we should limit the number of short-term rentals, what is going to be the system, should be limited by street, should there be a lottery, or some other ideas that people were discussing that maybe some other towns developed. There were also some ideas or suggestions or questions whether or not we allow single-family homes to be rented as short-term rentals, whether 2-3 family apartment houses can be rented in full, right? So as we discussed and reviewed those topics, a lot of these themes came up. And obviously safety is important, but I think there are other things that you may be interested in if you actually frequently attend these meetings. So I do suggest that folks who are either hosts or people, neighbors that have concerns do attend and express those concerns to the committee. So we hear from a lot of people. Because overall, we've had a couple people attend, but not that many.
Yes, thank you.
And if I could,
Go ahead.
if I could just play off of what Marie said. Marie, I expected the same, which I thought would have brought to light both sides of the coin, which I think are what we need here. We would have hosts calling in, stating how they operate, who they rent to, what their typical busy season is, even though we could probably assume that. And of course, on the other side, people, that neighbor one of these Airbnbs or just generally have an opinion on them. we haven't had much of that. I think, and I hate to throw myself out there to task myself with something, but this I'd be happy to do because I think it'll be helpful. I think what Rob has is tremendous. You know, we need some sort of working list to run down and kind of just track our progress. But I think something important for us will be looking at that, looking at what I was hopeful to get out of people calling in, or maybe just out of knowledge of the board. But I think we should understand who are these renters? Where are they renting? You know, why are they renting? And we might not know all the answers to that, but I think if we understand the people coming in, and then on the other side of the coin, we could say, okay, what are the issues? Where are the issues most commonly taking place? Is there a trend? Are the issues taking place in single-family houses? Are they apartment houses? Are they illegal units? Are they just kind of subject to one individual place? You know, that's causing a nuisance that maybe some rules and regulations would fix that issue itself. But I think having that information or starting to progress on that information would probably be helpful, because right now I think we're doing the best we can, but we're basing everything off of speculation. You know, there's some fact here, and we have some neighboring towns and communities and some further away that have no rules, that have a lot of rules. But I think we should use that as a basis, but we should make rules for us. You know, I think we all live in Nahant, and we love it because if we described it to anybody, we would say it's not like anywhere else in Massachusetts, and it's truly not. So adopting the same rules as another town or city might not be completely relative to us. So again, I think we should, and I'd be happy to start this list. You know, when are people renting? Why are they renting? Is that something we want to see take place? We had callers earlier on saying, you know, they had mostly, they had a handful of ex-Nahant residents or family members. I could tell you that I know, you know, I would see a lot of people coming in and staying because they were here for Easter, they were here for Christmas. You know, I think if we get that on paper and we see it, it's going to make the decision make a lot more sense. I don't think the town has an influx of bachelor parties or anything like that, which I think is a common issue with Airbnb in other parts of the world or country. But, you know, again, I think if we have some sort of understanding of who's coming here and why they're coming here, we could maybe form a basis on, you know, what we want and we don't want a little bit easier.
Okay, thank you, Steve. All
I'd
right,
like
so
to say something.
go ahead.
Yes, hi, my name is Cheryl, and I have a short-term rental in Nahant, and I have researched short-term rentals over the many beach areas, including Florida and Georgia, and all over. And so I'm familiar with different condos and all different regulations in different towns and the industry and what's happening over the nation. And I know that people, will see something on the news about, oh, the 200-person party, and they really want to get scared about that. But to be a professional and successful short-term rental business owner, as you've mentioned, and each person who has spoken up has said, like, I have very stringent rules. I have very strong communication with my guests. We have a very strong, care for our guests, of course, and their safety and things of that nature. And so, we certainly take those things upon ourselves. So what I'm hearing from the host is that they run a professional business, and I hear that everyone would be happy to participate in some kind of registration to kind of ensure that. And I think that would help our business and give us like a seal of approval. So, and I'd be happy to help Steve with ideas as well. And so one thing I hear is just, I feel like a little bit of kind of jumping on the news and like some worries. I really haven't seen anything like that in Nahant when it comes to these big, huge parties. And honestly, you won't be a successful host and remain on a platform like Airbnb or VRBO if you have those kind of problems. They're going to nip that in the bud. You're going to be kicked off, or you're not going to be in their algorithm and get renters. And so I think that worry should kind of be put to rest. But one thing that might help us get organized would be to lay out our concerns and then look at the regulations. And so we've had a strong concern for safety, right? So main point number one, safety, and then let's look at how we can address safety. Another concern that I've heard is, it's going to overrun the town. And according to the statistics that Steve presented today, we're barely approaching 1% for a short-term rental. So Is that something that we should address, that we should put off for later, that we're going to address if it reaches another percent, so on and so forth? So that would really be my recommendation, would be next to outline our concerns and then approach it from looking at all of the evidence that everyone has collected.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that? This is Caroline at 11 Hillcrest. I'm not only a Nahant resident, but also an Airbnb host, a separate home. I love the idea of getting feedback from the community, not only hosts, but also residents who maybe have some concerns. The challenge that I've had personally is I've been more proactive in trying to understand when these meetings are being held, and even trying to find notes or even recordings from past meetings. But I feel like there's not enough awareness. So if there's a way to increase that awareness and bring in the other hosts to be able to share their experience, which I'm absolutely happy to do. I'm happy to have you come into our Airbnb and see how we run it. I'm happy to pull up the platforms that we use for short-term rental. We are very similar to Cheryl in that we are heavily regulating our guests, but we've also had a lot of success. And I'm not even aware of a single complaint. So there's a lot to be shared from hosts like myself who've been operating short-term rentals for quite some time.
Okay, well, thank you, Caroline.
And that is one further thing that I have, Cheryl, again, sorry, 71 Willow, that there are many, many benefits from my perspective for the town. As Steve mentioned, that many people are coming back and visiting grandparents. We've had guests that are attending funerals, unfortunately, for their grandparents or people in town. We buy them treats from Turnstone Market and from Brett Henry's, and we, send them there for meals, and of course recommend tides and so on and so forth, as well with the Nahant 6% tax that's been added. So I really do see a lot of benefit for the town, and I hope that that is recognized and appreciated.
Oh, yeah, it's not being ignored, let's put it that way. It's not been a topic of our conversations in the meetings, but we're very well aware.
I'd like to say something, Wayne. Al Tassel, I live on Desmond Drive.
Go ahead.
First of all, it's no surprise to me that those that are calling in that are hosts, you are all the responsible types of hosts. And we think that that's wonderful. The ones that are maybe not so responsible or are thinking about becoming hosts that would never show up for these, those are the ones that those of us that are listening, our main concern is quality of life. We don't want a 65 Mayola situation happening. Because I listened to that woman probably about a month ago. I don't know if she's still on this call, but she doesn't wake up. She wakes up every day not knowing who's going to be living next door to her for a week or 2 weeks and what what type of lifestyle they're going to live while they're on vacation. So those of us that are not hosts, all we're concerned with, and of course we're concerned with safety of any neighbors, but it's really just a quality of life issue because not everybody that is a host is as responsible as those that are participating at this. So that's my 2 cents on this.
Okay, thank you, Al. All right, so we lose Marie. She said she had to leave.
650. And just to, I forget the woman's name, I apologize, but the woman who spoke before Cheryl did say that she had difficulty knowing and participating in the meeting.
Yeah.
It's every second and every second and fourth Tuesday. I'm on the planning board as well. I apologize, which we meet the opposite Tuesday. So yeah, it's every second and fourth Tuesday of every month. And the Zoom login, passcode, participant ID, all that good jazz is pretty cumbersome to try to remember. But if you remember the second and fourth Tuesday, it's always at 6 o'clock. And if you go to nahant.org, right on the home page at the bottom of it there's a calendar, and it will show you what's happening that day. And if you click on it, it'll be a direct link to the public posting that we have to do, which includes all the information on Zoom, any special information we're going to discuss during that meeting, pretty much the entire agenda actually. So that might be helpful. So yeah, it's every
Yeah, no, that's definitely
second,
helpful.
fourth
I think my,
Tuesday,
hi,
6 p.m.
It's Caroline. My point was really that I'm proactive in looking at the calendar and figuring out when the next meeting is. I'm pretty diligent about it. I don't know that other Airbnb owners are as aware. So if you want to expand feedback, I don't know if there's a way to get more visibility. My
Yeah.
second question is,
How to make it.
I had to miss the last meeting and I was looking for the notes or recording and I wasn't exactly sure where to find it.
Rob, can you answer that question?
Everything is submitted to Diane Dunphy in the town clerk's office, and she has those records on file.
Okay, so there you go. And again, apologize for not being more aware of where the stuff happens, where it goes after we submit it. I don't know if anyone's putting it on a website that someone could get into.
It's
Or
on
no?
the town website, on the calendar. As,
No, I'm not talking about the meetings. I'm talking about like the previous minutes.
The
I'm
minutes,
sorry.
I don't think they are, Wayne. I
No.
know the planning
No.
board has
Available,
not
I'm not
progressed
sure
to
if
that
it's being
point.
made available on a regular basis or not. I can't answer. But maybe we can find out from Diane what happens to them. Excuse me. So anyway, all right, so we're at 6:59. We already lost Marie because she said she had to leave at 6:50. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second,
Okay, so let's call the roll then. Steve,
Aye.
John,
aye.
Rob,
Aye.
myself, aye. And we're missing Marie already. So that's an aye vote to adjourn. Meeting adjourned at 7 p.m. See you again in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Good night.
Coming in and bringing in. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
night.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Aye.